All right, guys. Probably one of the more underrated fights on the card. I think Gerald Meerschaert is mostly remembered for his scuffle with Khamzat Chimaev. A lot of the preamble with being booked, a fight right after his. Still ended up losing within 30 seconds. So I think he deserved a break after that fight. Last two losses against guys like Khamzat and Ian Heinick. He's definitely been in a place where, you take a look at the fact that he should have been fighting Ed Herman twice. I think Ed Herman and Gerald Meerschaert would have made a much more competitive and good fight for where he's at in his UFC career versus, beasts like Khamzat coming off full camps and great performances. And then also Ian Heinick, who's just recently coming off like a big opportunity against Kelvin Gastelum. So when you look at where he's at in his career, I think this is a great opportunity for him against Bartosz Fabinski. Fabinski's coming in here as a big grappler as well. I think he only uses his striking to set up his takedowns. Likes to get you right up against the fence, drag it out, maybe get those like really tight grips and kind of just do a sweep trip to the ground. Really likes to just use the ground and pound style, even from guard. I think if you're getting a referee that doesn't like to stand it up too much, it's very favorable for him because he's one of those guys that's just going to keep trying to push you down and keep trying to keep you, in submission territory, ground and pound territory. I think that his striking is very much secondary to what he tries to do against the fence and on the ground. When you look at his Darren Stewart fight, actually, that was a beautiful fight. It seemed like it was a break between their UFC careers when they went back and fought in England, but Darren Stewart, who's been looking so good as a UFC fighter, kind of actually met his match, if you will, from a grappling and wrestling standpoint, because Bartosz Fabinski was able to get, him to the ground pretty easily. And the big thing about that was, you saw Fabinski just bloodied mess. Like, took a couple elbows there and was just bleeding all over Darren for 3 rounds. Darren was basically eating Bartosz Fabinski's blood. So those are the things that I kind of like, right? When you're thinking about what we've seen from Gerald in the past, what we've seen from even Bartosz Fabinski, this is a much more competitive fight for both of them to kind of get some confidence, momentum under their belt. I think that for Gerald, he's just taken on beasts lately. And he does very well against other southpaws. I've noticed, Eric Anders was a very competitive fight, and he's able to slip the punches a bit more, make it a bit more competitive. I thought I saw way more success there on the feet. And to be honest with you, when you compare the Eric Anders fight, facing another southpaw against some of the other fights that he's had, it's just really different in being able to compare the fighter you see from a striking perspective. Because I was really surprised with just how much better he looked there. And so in this case, when you're talking about a guy who likes to just push the pace, get you up against the fence, it'll be interesting to see if Gerald tries to actually stand there and strike, because I think in this case, he might have a good opportunity. If he can avoid some of the big shots, he can actually maybe dance a little bit here. But again, I think the chin might be one of the pound for pound most questionable in the UFC. And I don't know if he doesn't like keeping his chin very tucked in, but he does kind of throw for the wind a little bit. And then those are the little things that in the UFC level, I just think that you're bound to get caught. And we've seen it happen to him. And I think with Bartosz Fabinski, if he's able to catch you, given his game plan and his usual strategy in fights, that's a tough one to swallow, because I think that for him, he might even be thinking that there's the opportunity to finish. And you would assume he'd think on the ground, but at the same time, with the history that Gerald's shown via chin, it's going to be an interesting fight for Bartosz to basically, exploit whatever game plan he really wants to, given where the fight goes. So I'm excited for it, because if we get to see a lot of good scrambles and a lot of good, striking battles that don't really result in the big knockouts sometimes, I think that this could be one of those fights, because they both don't carry tremendous amount of power in their hands, but they both are, primary grapplers who are trying to get better in the striking game. So I'm actually excited for that side of things, because if they do try to keep it standing, I think it'll be hella competitive. And, if either guy gets tired or even gets hurt, you're going to see some guys try to take this to the ground. So keep it locked. I think that one's going to be fun, very all-around fight, and kind of two classic guys who kind of want to just, get their footing in the UFC. So stay tuned for that one. I think it's been absolute beauty.